Well, let me say this, to the rednecks, to the conservatives, to the GOP, to Republicans that maybe not like Yeshua party issues. You have to understand where I'm coming from. Now, before I got into politics, or at least I want to dig into politics, I said, okay, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? What are his issues in politics, right? What would, not what I specifically want, but what would indeed be godly politics on all issues? And the part that the Republicans and the GOP dislike is, in fact, the part, they like the part that I would be against abortions, right? For the black Christians to demand that, in fact, the black Christians leave the Democrat Party and join the Yeshua Party and be against abortion and the sexual sin agenda. When I talked about to God, I said, well, God, I do believe that men, that say two men that live in sexual sin, maybe they can't get holy matrimony because, in fact, it's unholy. God did not create man to be with man. And I thought, well, can they get certificates if one man should die? Then, in fact, the other man could, in fact, get their assets because they were not married, but what do they call that word? Secular marriage or something like that. It was a word that they came up with before they allowed gays to marry. It was a civil union. Civil union. I said, God, can I be with civil union? And then it would help them be able to get insurance for life insurance for their sexual sin partner, and if their sexual sin partner died, they would be able to be the beneficiary from it being in a civil union. And in fact, I don't claim to hear God's voice, but I believe that God made it clear to me, no, they don't get together, period. And so I said no to myself. I had to struggle with it for a minute and go God's way. And in fact, I'm not for the sexual sin agenda in the Yeshua party, but in fact, I had to deal with all kinds of sexual sin so I could empathize and sympathize. But getting back to the rednecks, the GOP, the Republicans, and this and that, I looked at and I could be considered a redneck. My family's from Arkansas, so I'm allowed to say it. And if a black says redneck, I don't get offended. It's like, yeah, what do you want? Yeah, I'm a redneck. What? But the Old Testament is clear that the society was built in a way that rich people, rich landowners that in fact had vineyards and stuff, they weren't allowed by the Mosaic law, I believe, in the old Jewish culture, to, when they had harvest, they must leave a portion of their harvest for the poor people to glean, right? To glean. And in fact, their laws allowed Jesus and the disciples to spend their money spreading the gospel. Why, in fact, they got hungry. They were afforded, because the laws were made to feed the poor, that in fact the disciples could pick from the fruit of the rich people's vine, eat it, be filled, and go preach the gospel. Now, I thought that in the Old that's in the New Testament, but the Old Testament law, I'm saying that in fact the rich people had to leave a portion of their crop or whatever to the poor. Now, going off of that, and going off the claim that black Christians they're ever caught in economic woes. I mean, they have influences much greater than a Caucasian coming up. We do simply have more opportunities than a black person that's raised in the ghetto that gets caught up in the hustle of their culture. It's their culture, yes, but I'm thinking of the black Christian that wants to break out of the status quo of the black culture that, in fact, would entrap them and get them caught in cases and this and that. They have more negative influences in their worlds. So I would be for the Republicans. That's part of the Yeshuah party. They really don't like that. I am not for those in the Republican Party that is for the God of money, which is greed. I'm not for that. I'm for, if you're a Republican, I would love for you to, in fact, love your black Christian brother and sister, son and daughter, grandma and grandpa as yourself, and to look at it, look at their lives, try to take a moment in your life. You've been brought up the conservative way, for you to stop and try to put your shoes in their feet, a good Christian black, right, that's trying to rise up. How, in fact, could you help them overcome great odds stacked against them in their communities? Now, that's the way I would love for Republicans to be conservative. Of course, we need to be competitive. We need to be competitive with our businesses on the global, on the grand global scale, or on a global market, or whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry I'm not being articulate, but in fact, we need to be competitive. So for jobs, and we need to be number one in our businesses and our jobs. So in fact, that we don't allow this totalitarian world government to come in and to collapse our businesses with overburdened taxes and with climate change regulations that strangles them worse than Americans' freedoms from the Rona regulations. But we do want to make sure the poor is fed. And again, we want to make a society where a young Dr. Ben Carson that may grow up in Detroit that has opportunities, the more opportunities that he can get, most opportunities that he can, in fact, climb the economic scale and bless America with the talent that he has inside that wasn't wasted by really greedy Republicans wanting to hold him down.